Africa in history has always mined, but the processing has moved to other countries. So we are going to initially put in a project of about $25 million where we're going to do primary processing of graphite, where we'll get about 94% purity. And then the second medium-term plan is to invest $250 million to refine that into 99.5%, create spherical graphite for cathodes. Then we can market directly, and this is the value that Africa should look for.
Graphite is largely dominated by China at this point in time, both synthetic and pure. What is the value play that you see, especially if you have a China that is dominating this market?
I think that's a very brilliant question. As a matter of fact, not only that China is dominating, all the technology of that pure graphite is only in China. And 90% of this is processed in China. But as we can see, there's a little bit of a rift in the West. The Europeans, the Americans are getting a little bit nervous around China. And I see this as a great opportunity for Africa to step up and to have a supply that is out of China, which brings a lot of comfort to the West. To that extent, I was in France and I met some very senior people, and they have this export credit finance structures where generally ECAs are meant for you to buy countries' technology and bring it to your country, and they finance that because it supports the whole industrial base. But today, Europeans are open for me to buy Chinese technology on an export finance of a European country as long as I give them offtake. So I'm stepping into a gap between China and Europe and the West.
So you already have partners then in the West that you've spoken to, investors who are buying into, would buy into?
On offtake purposes, but this will be principally MeTL Group's total investment plan.
What is that? What's the timeline for this?
So the first timeline, the first process, I think we have already quantified reserves of the graphene. Within 18 months, the primary processing will be set up. And then I believe from there, in the next 24 months, the $250 million investment will come in.
From MeTL?
From MeTL Group, yes.
Into the mining sector. Yes. Then do you expand out to other minerals, or do you focus in on graphite for the moment? Right
now I'm concentrating on graphite because you see, when you talk about mining, you can do copper and gold, and Tanzania has got a lot of gold. Yeah. But those are a little bit of speculative businesses because the barrick golds of this world have got enough concessions and they are big enough to try and miss. See, I have gold concessions, but the question is, yes, there is gold. How deep is the gold? One, what is the purity of the gold? Two, what is the economics to extract that gold? So I haven't reached that stage. So first, I'm focusing on graphene and graphite.
That was Mohammed Dewji, President and CEO of the MeTL Group, speaking to our own Africa correspondent, Jennifer Zabasajja. And Jen joins us now from Cape Town, not Johannesburg, this morning. Jen, great interview. Good to have you on. Let's talk a little bit more about it. What is Mohammed's timeline for the rollout of these investments?
Well, I think what's key, Abir, is that this is quite a significant shift for the MeTL Group. For decades, they've been focused on manufacturing consumer goods, and this is the industry they have really zeroed in on over the past few decades. But he clearly, as you were just hearing there, sees an opportunity to tap into some of the demand for minerals, especially when you think about some of the diversifying that we're seeing some major countries do in in terms of their partnerships. And so as far as his timeline goes, he's really targeting what he told me was 50,000 tons per annum as it pertains to graphite in particular. And he does hope that some of these partners that he has been speaking with in Europe and also in Asia, we should point out, will be the partners that he sees moving forward with some of these mining opportunities. But, I know you heard there a bit about some of his discussions with the West and with the U.S. He still potentially sees down the road there could be some opportunities, especially when you think about the demand for graphite right now. It is dominated by China as far as the mining goes and also the processing. And so he also has a rollout for what that looks like in terms of being able to purify the graphite over time and how that might change then who he's ultimately selling to.
And Jen, if this is a successful feat, how would it impact the Tanzanian economy?
It's key for Mohammed Dewji when he thinks about the long-term success and really the growth of the Tanzanian economy, especially when you look at some of the numbers and what we have seen over the past few years with the economy. The government is quite ambitious as far as what they're seeing GDP and economic growth to look like. They're targeting growth of over 6% for this year and potentially it going even higher. And a lot of that is supported by investment into sectors like mining, like agriculture, like construction. And so Mo sees this potentially fitting into some of those plans that the government is already in the process of working on. We should also note that we've been reporting quite a bit about Aliko Dangote, which is, of course, Africa's richest person, in discussions with the government to also invest in some of those infrastructure projects. So potentially this is a boon to what we are seeing, but the Tanzanian economy still is undergoing quite a bit of a tight monetary policy situation. We're seeing stagnating foreign direct investment coming in to the government. And so there's still quite a bit of a gap that needs to be made in terms of private investors like Mo, like Aliko Dangote, and others to potentially catch up the economy to where the IMF sees it going.